Hello everyone, welcome back to this channel. In this specific video, we'll be talking about GS3 internal security, and within that, we'll be specifically dealing with the issue of Nagas, Naga insurgency, the role of OFSPA, and the entire motivation for this video is the recent incident that happened in Nagaland. What exactly is the incident? What are we talking about? And how is it relevant to our syllabus? We'll be looking at that in this video. The picture that you're looking at is the map of Mon district in the state of Nagaland. So something very ghastly happened in this particular district last week. So what exactly happened? Apparently, our armed forces mistook 13 civilians for militants in Nagaland and they shot them down. And as a result, violence erupted in the district and as well as the state of Nagaland. And there were calls for repeal of what we know as AFSPA. So, what exactly is AFSPA? Why was it legislated prior to this incident? What is the history? And what is the context of Naga insurgency? Let us understand in this video. Let me give a brief context to this entire issue. Before independence, Nagaland was associated with Assam. But historically, if you take a look at it, Nagas did not have any contact with the outside world because they were mostly tribal societies, a group of tribes living together. In 1828, British annexed Assam under the Treaty of Yandabo, and by 1881, they also brought Naga Hills as a part of British India, and this is the beginning of the conflict with British India. And the same historical legacy has been passed on to the post-independent period as well. So the effort to bring these scattered Naga tribes together resulted in the formation of what was called as the Naga Club in 1918. So this is the beginning of the modern day insurgency, conflict, and all the issues that you are witnessing today. So Naga Club was formed in 1918. This Naga Club has actually rejected in 1929 the Simon Commission, and the reason for this is they wanted to be left alone to determine what is right for them according to their customs and traditions. By the year 1946, the club evolved into Naga National Council and it is even more organized. So by 1947, that is at the time of independence, under the leadership of a person called Angami Pizzo, started to demand a separate country for Nagas. And by 1951, after a referendum where this person claimed that 99.9% of Nagas wanted a sovereign Nagaland, that is a separate country. And it is in this context, apart from this, also the 1947 partition conflicts in the northeast region, that is Assam, all this has resulted in the Indian government bringing out a series of laws to regulate this insurgency movement. So that is the brief history of this entire legal issues that we are witnessing today. In 1958, the Indian Parliament came out with the controversial Armed Forces Special Powers Act in 1958. Initially, this was applied for just Manipur and Assam. Now, you might be wondering, how is it exactly relevant to the Naga issue? Let us discuss that. After 1958 and the subsequent creation of the rest of the Northeast states, including Nagaland, this law was adapted and modified accordingly. So, which parts of the country come under AFSPA is the next question that you have to understand, and what are the powers under this particular law. Before we actually talk about which parts of the country is under AFSPA, let us understand certain technicalities about this law. What exactly is a disturbed area under this particular law? So, a disturbed area is the one which is declared by a notification as per the section 3 of this act. Where can it be invoked? Wherever there is use of armed forces as a necessity for maintaining law and order. That is to say, armed forces are given a power to maintain public order, that is to ensure peace in this region. So what are they having as a part of this authority that they are given? They have the authority to prohibit a gathering of 5 persons or more. They can even arrest a person without a warrant if they feel there is a reasonable suspicion that the person is a militant. Also, they have the authority to actually open fire after giving due warning if they feel a person is in contravention of the law. Considering such stringent provisions given to the armed forces, you can imagine the kind of impact it will have on the citizens of that particular region. A prelims level question: who has the power to declare a particular area as a disturbed area? So the answer is, according to this law, either central government, the governor of the state, or the administrator of the union territory. At the moment, as per this AFSPA 1958 Act, the entire state of Assam, Nagaland are under this act, and the whole of Manipur, except certain areas of municipality under Imphal, are under this act also. Previously, Tripura and Meghalaya were also having this act, but recently the situation got better and this act was revoked. However, another prelims pointer that you have to remember is Jammu and Kashmir also has this AFSPA, but it is a different act. It was imposed in 1990 and not the 1958 law. The law is different. The concept is more or less the same, but the law is different. Please note this point. Is there a need to repeal AFSPA? This is the question that is on our hand at this point of time. Now, for this, what we should be actually doing is we have to examine the need for use principle. Please use these words in your answers. Need for use principle. What does this mean? Let us, for example, consider Jammu and Kashmir. It is bordering Pakistan, which is a security threat for us. So we don't want to be seen as a very soft state as far as our security policies are concerned. But if you apply the same logic in Northeast, we don't have a external enemy on our front, but the issue is very much internal. And application of force to convince people of our own country has not really worked in our favor. This is the uh, premise of the need for use principle. And if we have to talk about repeal of AFSPA, we have to look at the internal issues and calculatively gauge the response. This is the central premise of the need for use principle. Take the case of Assam. Actually, Assam was under this AFSPA because of a terrorist organization called ULFA. Now that organization has actually been mostly finished. The Bodo Rebellion, which is the basis for application of this law in Assam, which we'll be talking about in a different video. Just remember this word Bodo. They are a group in Assam, and there is an internal conflict happening there, which has been the justification for implying this law in this region. Despite that fact, AFSPA has not been repealed yet. So when you're talking about Nagaland, probably the law can be applied to just 10% of the area that is bordering Myanmar, considering the fact that Myanmar itself is under insurgency, where military coup recently happened and democracy has almost been taken out, or the chance for democracy has been denied to its people. There is a chance of spillover of those elements into the northeast. So therefore, on the 10% area that is bordering Myanmar, we can apply the law, and 90% of the area that is under AFSPA right now has had safe and peaceful times in the recent past. So the justification for AFSPA is not so high according to certain writers and human rights activists. So this is the justification that they provide for repeal of AFSPA. But as far as Jammu and Kashmir is concerned, the time is yet to come. So this is about AFSPA. Now let us go back to the issue of Nagas and the entire larger picture of what actually Naga issue is all about. Previously, we have seen that Angami Fizo has actually formed the Naga National Council, and in 1952 he actually formed a Naga federal government and an army. And after this, in 1958, after increasing incidents of violence, AFSPA was brought into the picture. We have seen the impact of AFSPA and the need to repeal it in this region. Anyway, coming back to the original Naga issue, what happened after this Naga federal government and army was created? In 1975, after the state of Nagaland was created, the people in the Naga National Council did not believe that the statehood given to Nagaland was actually fulfilling the demands of the Nagas. So the government reached out to this Naga National Council and they actually called this NFG, that is the Naga Federal Government and the Naga National Council, and a agreement called Shillong Accord was reached. But within this, there was a group of people. By 1980, this group of people were unhappy with the terms laid down in Shillong Accord, and so they came out and created the National Socialist Council of Nagaland in 1980. Again, this was under the leadership of a person called Muiwa. This group further split into NSC-IM and NSC-K, that is named after the leaders or the factions within that organization, called NSCN-IM is under the leadership of a person called Isaac Chisi Swu, and NSCK is the Kaplang faction under the leadership of Kaplang. After 1990, this Naga Nationalist Council, which actually started this movement, began to fade out because of the death of this person. And eventually, NSCN has actually began to grow in power. In 2015, our Prime Minister Modi has actually signed a Naga agreement, which is considered historic. However, this agreement was not accepted again by NSCN K or the Kaplan faction, but the majority of the Nagas are NSCN IM. So this is the status till 2015. What happened after that? What happened after 2015 peace accord with the NSCN IM? Now, before this, let us actually look at the original set of demands that Naga movement was all about. Firstly, it was about Naga sovereignty or a greater Nagaland called Nagalim, as you can see in this picture, that is sandwiched between India, Bangladesh, and Myanmar. So, this region was actually having certain areas of Assam, Manipur, and Arunachal Pradesh also. The original proponents who wanted Naga sovereignty were supporting a separatist movement of these regions also. So there was a conflict with the tribes and other people in the states of Assam, Manipur, and Arunachal Pradesh also with the Nagas. Second demand was with respect to their separate constitution, and the third one was with respect to their separate flag. So all these demands were toned down in the 2015 pact, but they wanted an autonomous region. But the problem again is within that region, they wanted those ancestral lands which were actually given to the states of Assam, Manipur, and Arunachal Pradesh, which again is a problematic issue because these states are not willing to let go of that land. Another issue is that NSCIM faction has certain weapons associated with their insurgency groups. How do you manage these weapons and what is the kind of agreement? This is also one more issue. So NSCN IM camps are going to be managed by themselves, and the weapons that they had were supposed to be only for self-defense purpose. But more often, what is happening is these influential cadres are seen moving around with weapons in normal civilian localities also, and obviously this will create a lot of problem. But more than all these things, the biggest issue is lack of law and order. Indian government wants its law and order to be imposed here in this region, but the problem is the cadres of this organization are so powerful that they eventually levy taxes. These insurgent groups are intricately actually influencing the developmental activities in Nagaland. They are running parallel governments which are not recognized by the Indian constitution. So obviously it is also something that is an issue of security and also law and order. The other side of the story, if you take a look at their argument, they say that this is Nagaland's culture, but clearly there is also a subjugation of the people who do not have power, and this lack of rule of law is very dangerous to that region's stability. So this is the argument of India. In this whole scheme of things, the person who was actually appointed as the governor of Nagaland, he wrote a letter to the CM stating his disappointment about how this insurgent groups are running parallel governments and law and order situation is not in the government's control. Again, this brought a stalemate to the entire discussions with the NSCN IM factions, and therefore the issue still remains unresolved. So this is the background of the entire Naga issue. Now the big question is how to resolve this deadlock. If we take a look at the history of armed conflicts across the world, you would realize the only way to resolve the deadlock is through a compromise. Now, what is the compromise that we're talking about here? Decentralization. But the government is ready to decentralize power. But what is happening is the Naga inhabited areas in other states, like say Assam, Arunachal Pradesh, Nagaland folks want those areas also under Nagaland as a completely autonomous region, but that is not possible. And the only way to ensure that this issue is resolved is within the state of Assam, Arunachal Pradesh, etc. There is a possibility of autonomous Naga districts. Okay, autonomous Naga districts. So they will have a separate budget. They will have their own tribal heads ruling over their citizens in accordance with the customs laid down by the Naga traditions. So this is how peace can prevail in that region. So this is the key takeaway. Take people into confidence and realize that Nagas are not just a homogeneous set of people. There are so many tribes within Nagas, and each of those tribes have different cultures and customs. So, in order to settle this issue, this is the only way out. So, the Indian government should probably continue the peace talks on these lines and bring as many people on board as possible and ensure that peace prevails in this region. And also, laws like APSPA needs to be reconsidered in these regions, because given the fact that we are in a sort of a moral crisis because of the innocents being killed in this ambush recently, time has come for us to reconsider APSPA in this region and ensure selective application of this law. So that is the gist of this entire issue. I hope you understood the crux of the concept. Now, what could be a probable question? So there are two topics here. One is the Naga dilemma and the other one is AFSPA. Either you can get static concept like what are the features of AFSPA, what is the definition of disturbed area, and what are the powers under AFSPA for the armed forces, or you can get a spatial analysis of the application of this AFSPA. The second dimension that we can talk about is the history of Naga conflict and how we can resolve it. So you can expect questions from any of this. So if you like the content of this video, I request you to please subscribe and also join the Telegram channel t.me/Hindu highlights. You will find the notes here. That's it for now. Thanks for watching.